Welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of the Business Matters podcast from the Win Technology Studio. Thank you to our media sponsor, Royal Credit Union. Today I have with me Travis Hilton. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start by having you talk a little bit about the history of Rock Falls Raceway.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate. I've been in drag racing my entire life. And so being able to take a number of experiences from when I used to be a drag racer myself to being sponsors at facilities and working just about every role available at a drag strip. It's being able to take those learned experiences and try to do what we can to make Rock Falls Raceway a better facility. Rock Falls Raceway has been in operation since 1969. And over the last number of years, over 55 years now, we've been able to find a way to try and bring a racing experience to everybody here within the Chippewa Valley and across the world from people who attend our events.
That's really incredible. What made you decide to move to the Eau Claire area and take over this raceway of all the raceways that you had a chance to move to?
Yeah, so I moved up here in September of 2023, and looking at the environment, looking at the people that are here, I found a real strong car culture. There's a lot of automotive enthusiasts here in the Eau Claire area, and it showed me that there's a lot of drive and desire to have people involved in the raceway, and so then that takes the task of the facility to provide that experience for people in the area. And being able to meet people within the community and trying to find ways to better hone the skills of what we can provide at Rock Falls Raceway to make that a better experience for people in the area presented a really fun challenge, and I'm a kind of guy that likes challenges.
I'm picking up on that. You said that you used to drag race. Do you still?
Yeah, so I don't really drag race anymore. There's a task of working on the weekends, and that's primarily when drag races are being held. That makes it a little harder for me to be able to get out there and get back behind the wheel. But since a very young age, I've always felt this is where I belonged, working at a drag strip instead of racing at one. And it really feels like home to me, being able to work at a track.
When I met you about a year and a half ago, we were talking a little bit about the raceway. I've lived here for about 15 years and didn't really know a whole lot about it. Now, my uncles are very much into racing, and so they've known about it for a really long time. What are some of the things that you're doing to help make the presence known about racing and the automotive industry, and then, of course, the raceway itself?
Yeah, so we have a phenomenal team at the track, and there's a phenomenal team of young men and women, and some who have a couple more years to them that are really the stars to make the track so successful. And one mentality that we try to always make sure we remember is drag racing and racing at Rock Falls Raceway. We're not like a gas station, and we're not a grocery store. We're not a necessary item. As much as I may believe that drag racing is necessary, it's not a necessary thing for people to do. So we had to create an environment that makes people want to be there, makes them want to come out to race in the events or to spectate at the events, or like the number of great partners that we have with the facility, make them want to provide a financial backing to make the events more successful. So it's about having that mentality of making people want to be there because nobody really has to be there.
So what are some of those things? You seem to be pretty in tune on what, the spectator would want out of our numerous conversations that we've had. So can you share a little bit about who should be coming out, the type of people you try to attract?
Absolutely. So that's the great thing about drag racing in general is it's a family environment. So there are so many opportunities for folks of young age and of more age to them to be able to come out and experience something that they may enjoy. It's about trying to create entertainment value for all of the participants that come out to the events. And, you look at what our typical entry fee costs, anywhere from $10 up to $25, depending on what type of event is going on. But that's for 6 to 8 hours of entertainment, and not to create a negative comparison, but you think of like a movie theater where you can pay approximately the same price and you get a reward of a two and a half hour movie. And, with drag racing and specifically at Rock Falls Raceway, you can get 6 to 10 hours of entertainment for that one price. Drag racing is different than some other forms of motorsports. In dirt track racing primarily, you can have a entry fee for yourself to come in the gate, and then there's an additional fee to do other things, whether it be a pit pass to get into the pits where the racers are, or any numerous of other types of charges. And at Rock Falls Raceway, we don't believe in any of that. So the price that you pay as a spectator to come in the gate is the only price you have to pay, and you have almost unlimited access to all facets of the facility. You can walk through the pit areas and talk to the drivers, see the vehicles up close and personal, or get close up to the starting line where the cars launch and be able to watch the cars thunder off to upwards of 200 miles per hour. And you can sit there just right next to the vehicles almost to be able to watch that. And there's no additional fees for doing those things.
That's pretty incredible. What do you see for spectators now? Give us a sense for that family age range that you see, or your tried and true spectators that have been around for years and years.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate that in the last season we've seen a pretty substantial amount of growth. Comparing the 2023 to 2024 season, we were up over 40% in spectator attendance across the board at all of the events. And it feels like we are able to touch a different market now where families are bringing out their young kids to be able to watch the races. And, drag racing is very cyclical, where a younger person will come out to the drag strip maybe with their family when they're younger, and they'll be really invested in it. And you'll see them get to about that mid 25 to 30-year-old range, and they'll kind of disappear, and you almost wonder, well, where did that person go? Where aren't they here coming out to the track anymore? And then about 6 or 7 years later, they'll show back up with their young children, and they're bringing in that new generation of racers. And we're to the point now we actually have 5 generations of a family that races at the racetrack constantly.
Wow.
And it's so cool to see where we have programs for kids as young as 5 years old to be able to race down the racetrack in special cars, or kids as young as 13 years old to be able to drive street vehicles down the drag strip, and finding ways to create those environments for the younger generation to experience something out in the real world and be able to work with their hands and talk with adults and learn these life skills that are so valuable to carry them on into their professional lives as well.
That's so neat. You started to talk about it already, but how do you attract the racers themselves? And we'll get into the events and kind of the variety of events. And I know you have ambitions of growing the different types of events that happens at the raceway, but what's kind of existing now?
So with the racers, there's other opportunities for them. So there's a couple of racetracks over on the east side of Wisconsin, as well as there's a couple of racetracks in Minnesota as well. And personally for myself, I don't believe in trying to compare ourselves to other racetracks. I try to make sure that we are doing the best job that we can. And so that's either providing a safe racing environment for the racers when they come out to Rock Falls Raceway, as well as providing the best opportunities for them. So that would be in regards to payout for categories like that. This year we had a previous supplier for our trophies that we had for racers, and they are kind of what you would assume as a stock trophy, like a participation looking trophy. And we went past that this year, and we actually are producing our own trophies in-house that we give away to the racers, and they're custom etched acrylic trophies. And so it's about trying to find those little things to reward to racers. A lot of racers really want a clean program that runs efficiently and lets them get home on time. And previously, the racetrack had a bit of an issue with running very late, especially on Sunday evenings, and races weren't getting in until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And our great team that we have has stepped that up now, and we're running a much more efficient pace for the races, which allows us on Sundays, for example, to usually get done in around that 4:30 to 5 o'clock timeline, which allows folks who come from the Twin Cities or upwards of 6-7 hours away from Canada, allows them to leave at a decent hour on Sunday and get back home on time so they can have work on Monday and not feel exhausted. So it's always about trying to listen to what the racers need and what they're looking for in their racing environment, and then providing that to them so that way they're happy with their trip to Rock Falls Raceway.
And you find that most of those racers will come back year after year or event to event, depending on what fits for the type of driving they do?
Absolutely, yeah. So drag racers as well, for the racing side, we saw about a 60% increase in attendance last year from what we had in 2023 to what we saw in 2024. And we're tracking that way as well so far this year into the 2025 season. We're still showing a significant increase in the amount of racer attendance. And I believe it's because with the team that we have, we are providing the environment that the racers are looking for their on-track performances, as well as the spectators are looking for providing value to them of being able to watch cars consistently go down the racetrack without watching a couple cars go and then having nothing happen, and then seeing a few more cars and then nothing happen. We're keeping that consistent flow of racers going down the racetrack, which allows the spectators to constantly see this rolling car show of race cars that they get to see going down the track.
That's really neat. Thanks for sharing all of that. It's every time I hear a little bit more about the Raceway, I feel like I'm learning more about the drivers themselves and how to participate in it. I have yet to be out to the Raceway yet, so my goal is to do it this year.
That would be great.
And I believe that you just opened up your season.
Yes.
What does the season look like?
Yeah, so historically the track has had around 40 to 45 event days a year, and be it this far north into the states that we are, the springs usually drag on a little longer, and the falls trying to come in a little quicker. So we don't have a lot of weekends available to us to be able to put on events between bouncing around holidays that happen and typically are harder for people to get away to go to the drag strip when they want to spend time with their family. And so the track has always historically had around 40 to 45 odd event days. And We tried to make a bigger impact on the racers in talking with a lot of the racers and the spectators and our sponsors from the past season. They wanted to see more events. And so from 2024, we had 41 event days. And here in the 2025 season, we have 68 event days on the schedule in an effort to try and put on more events that the racers and the spectators and the sponsors want to see.
Yeah. Are those events that you kind of anticipated for your first year of growth at the Raceway, or are these kind of new opportunities that spectators can hope to participate in?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a handful of new events this year in addition to our returning favorite events. We still have the similar events to last year. We have the CTEC Manufacturing Badger Classic, which is the event that we partner with Joshua's Camp with. We have the NHRA National Open, where the NHRA, which is the sanctioning body for drag racing, they have their professional series, and we bring in about 8 of their professional racers that come to Rock Falls Raceway to participate at the facility. And then the crowd favorite, the 10th annual Fallout Drags, which is in September, which is all vintage drag racing. It's 1965 and older cars only, and it's such a great glimpse into the past of racing. Drag racing has spawned now almost 70 years of participation, and to be able to watch the involvement and the evolution of drag racing and have that glimpse back into the past with the Fall Drags is pretty awesome. But we've also added in a few new events this year. So in September, we have 2 new events to us with the first annual Volkswagen Invasion. It's on September 6th. It's all Volkswagens only at the facility, and the Chippewa Valley Volkswagen Club have partnered together with us. They have their Father's Day car show that they have in town, and they partnered with us for this new event as well. So we'll have Volkswagen drag racing, car show, and swap meet going on, along with a numerous amount of kind of fun events that we'll have during the day. And so if you're a Volkswagen fan, that's going to be a great time for you to come out. And then later on in September as well, we have the inaugural Mopar Showdown presented by Stanky Motorsports. So it's all Mopar. So that's like your Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Ram trucks. It's all Mopars, and that'll be on Saturday and Sunday. For the Mopar Showdown and for the Volkswagen Invasion event, those can be street legal vehicles as well as performance-built race cars. And so you'll see both of them at both of those shows, as well as a lot of our events at the racetrack. So, again, the Mopar Showdown, though, on those 2 dates, we'll have drag racing, car show, and swap meet on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we actually kind of turn the corner a little bit and go autocross racing, which is, for anybody not familiar, is kind of like road course racing, but on a smaller scale version. It's still full-size cars, but they set up a cone course, and it's like a slalom course meets a time attack. So it's going to be pretty exciting. But, you talk about what kind of vehicles people can expect when they come to the track. And that's a great thing about like our O'Reilly Auto Parts test and tune days that we have throughout the season. They are open to, the general rule of thumb is if it can go down the highway safely, it can go down the drag strip safely. And so on these O'Reilly Auto Parts test and tune days, that's when you'll see everything from a minivan with grandma in the driver's seat to a brand new Ford Mustang or a Lamborghini. There's all types of vehicles that you'll see show up at those test and tune days. But a lot of people think that at the drag strip you have to have a specific race vehicle, and people accumulate that from, they look at like road course racing or they look at dirt track racing where they see modified vehicles that are specifically built for that form of motorsports. And drag racing takes a much more open approach to it, to where your street legal vehicle that, again, you're going down the highway safely, and you can bring that out to the drag strip, and 99 times out of 100 you can go down the drag strip and you can experience the speed and the thrills without having to worry about a speeding ticket or anything like that.
I can imagine that there are some listeners that have attempted speed limits that are not posted on regular roadways.
Yes.
So how might one get involved at the Raceway if they wish?
So that's the great thing about drag racing, is that it allows all these different forms of participation. And I can feel like everybody has sat at a stoplight before and seen the red stoplight and waited and waited and waited and then waited some more, and then they see the light turn green and they think, this is my opportunity, and then they accelerate and they feel that impact of speed. And while we don't encourage that at all on the streets, we encourage that heavily at the drag strip. And the great thing about doing it at the drag strip is you have safety measures in place. So at every drag strip event, we have 2 officials that are in a safety vehicle, which is equipped with all kinds of extrication equipment and fire extinguishing equipment and things of that nature, as well as you have 2 people in an ambulance. And those are always on property at the drag strip during any one of our events. So that way, if something were to happen, you have an immediate response from trained officials to take care of you, which are things that we don't obviously have that same opportunity on the street. And so anybody who out there, if you've ever felt that need for speed and that desire to go fast as you can on a safe and controlled environment, that's what we provide at Rock Falls Raceway.
Probably an unfair question, so if you want to say no comment, that's totally fine. But do you have a favorite event that you personally like to partake in or watch?
Yeah, so people ask me this a lot, actually, about what's my favorite event. And, for a kid like me who has grown up in drag racing, has known nothing in my life, I've never had a job outside of a drag strip, there is no favorite event for me. Anytime that we can send cars down a drag strip is a great day. I get paid to play with Hot Wheels. It's really hard to complain about anything in life for me. But no, every event brings its own little nuances. The test and tune days are great to see new faces and people who maybe never raced before, and being able to watch their eyes light up as they go fast in a safe environment, to like the NHRA National Open in August, where you have these professional drivers come in here who their job is to drag race. That's all they do in their life is drag racing, and to watch how they attack the drag strip in a different manner. They're so calculated in what they do, all the way down to like the Fallout drags in September, where it's folks who have a couple more rings around their tree trunks, to put it politely, and they're just out here having a ball. And, you'll take an 86-year-old man like we had at the drag strip last year during the Fallout drags and see him smiling from ear to ear because of what he was able to accomplish on the drag strip. It's just every event has its own little rewarding things to it. So, you take our long-standing events like the big ones all the way down to like the new events with the Volkswagen Invasion and the Mopar Showdown, and to see new faces enjoying speed at a safe place it's all rewarding.
So as a business operator in the area, how are you getting involved in the local community to get the word out about Rock Falls Raceway?
Yeah, so we have great partners like WQOW News Station, where we run commercials every week regarding the facility with whatever events coming up for that week, to Midwest Family of Eau Claire, where we have radio advertisements that go on talking about the events, all the way to little things like, previously there was the Cause for Celebrations event that was raising monies for charities, and being able to participate in those events and dress up in 80s attire for those events, and being part of the community in that way, to all kinds of little things. We get a lot of letters or emails from people that are looking to do raffle drawings or giveaway drawings, and we always try to participate in those, whether it be providing some merchandise forward to event tickets, to any number of ways, to always make sure that we are giving back to the community. Because again, kind of harkening back to the initial conversation, we're not a necessary business, and so our job is to be involved in the community and support the community, because it's all of the folks who come to the facility every year that allow us to operate the way we do. And then that leads up to obviously our pinnacle event with the C-Tech Manufacturing Badger Classic, where we take all the proceeds from that event and donate it to Joshua's camp. And we're so fortunate that over the last 3 years, we've raised over $100,000 to donate to Joshua's camp. And it's such a rewarding feeling that no amount of money could buy. The feeling that you get when you're able to take those checks and provide it to Wendy and her team at Joshua's camp, and to see the smiles on the faces of these young children as they're able to provide things for them, that makes all the difference in the world.
Well said. You could almost put a period on that. You brought up youngsters, and I know one of the very first times that we met, you talked about your interest in fostering youth, especially in the automotive industry and the raceway itself. Can you talk a little bit about how you're fostering that a year and a half in to the industry now, but also a little bit about your workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're very fortunate at the facility that we have a lot of high school age kids that come out and work during the summer months, as they're out of school. Nobody's getting out of school to come work at the drag strip. Don't get me wrong. We have a lot of young kids that come out and taking these young adults and who they may be working their first job, or they may have experience working at other places, and trying to expose them to what for most of them is a different world. A lot of them have not been to the drag strip before, and so you want to find the skills that these young adults have, and then mentor those skills and grow their abilities in those skills, whether it be an entrepreneurial mindset or a management mindset, or whatever the case might be. You want to find those skills that they're good at and try and entrench them in that more, so that way they can gain more work-life experience, to when they do leave us as a part-time job and go to find a full-time job, they have those skills built into them to be able to succeed, all the way down to maybe finding a young adult who is not confident or does not feel like they have the ability to do something. And personally, I try to take the approach of, when I find somebody who is not comfortable in a management role or is not comfortable in a marketing type role, and try to empower them into those situations, whether they like it or not, sometimes even, and getting them that valuable experience, so that way when they go into what I call the real world, which is everything that exists outside of Rock Falls Raceway, they are comfortable in those positions and they have a stronger growth. And so you take that from the staff member side, and then you look at the young adults that come here to want to participate in the events and the racers. And we're very fortunate that we have a program at Rock Falls Raceway called Junior Street, which takes children that are age 13 to 16 years old and allows them to race down the drag strip in full-size street legal vehicles. They have a adult in the passenger seat, and they're able to compete and race at this track. And then as well, they can go to the regional championship, which this year is in Iowa, and compete for a regional championship role in that junior street category. So it's a very affordable program for kids out there who maybe are interested in cars or interested in racing, but don't have the means to go out and buy a race car. They can actually race at 13, 14, 15 years old without a driver's license and compete at the drag strip with their family with them and compete against other young adults for racing on the drag strip.
Do you have a fair amount of kids in that age range that are already participating?
Yes.
Or
yeah, so the program when I moved up here had 4 kids in it, and this year we're up to 14 registered young adults that are competing in the program. So
I'm sensing a trend of just exponential growth and all of the things that you've decided to offer at the raceway.
Yeah, we have a very good team that makes everything run very smoothly, and then I kind of fill in the gaps when it's needed.
So Travis, tell our listeners how they can connect with you with either events or coming to the raceway. Yeah,
so that's the great thing about having a facility like ours is we can do all kinds of things. I've been at drag strips where we've put on weddings, we've had funerals, we've had bachelor parties, we've had bachelorette parties, we've had all kinds of things that go on at the facility. It's 60 acres of usable land, and we always try to look for different ways to use that, from anything like the special events that we just mentioned about, or even to private rentals where folks will actually come out there and want to rent the facility to race either their one car, or we want to get a group of buddies together and rent the facility. All those kinds of things are available to people, and you can reach out to us, through our website. We have contact information forms there where we can talk about looking into finding events that fit your needs to be able to put on our facility.
And I understand you've had a pretty big impact here in the year and a half that you've been here, so there may not be availability this year. Yeah,
we, going from 41 event days up to 68 it's a lot for the facility, and we're anxious to see how it turns out. We're anxious to see what the improvements look like and make sure that we are able to showcase to everybody here, not only within the Chippewa Valley region, but to folks across Wisconsin, Minnesota, and all the surrounding states about what we're able to provide to everybody here in the area.
But for those who are interested, they could reach out on the website to contact you for 2026.
Absolutely. Yep. We're already working the schedule for next year and trying to make sure that next year is even bigger than this year.
That's awesome. And what kind of socials do you have?
Yeah. So you can find us on rockfallsraceway.com, as well as we are very active on Facebook and Instagram. And then for the vast majority of our events, we actually live stream it as well on our YouTube channel. Now, folks hear that there's a live stream and they like to go there and watch instead of coming to the track. But I highly encourage anybody who's listening that if you've never been to the drag strip before, please at least give us one chance. If you come out to the facility and you experience the races and it's not for you, we understand that. But drag racing is not like other forms of sports where you can watch it on TV and get the majority of the experience. Drag racing is unique in that way where when you're at the track and you physically watch the cars launch from a standing start to up to 200 plus miles per hour and disappear over the horizon in front of you, or you hear the sounds of the engines or the noise and the smells of the burnouts and the race engines running, it's an entirely different sensory level sport than what a lot of other forms of sports are. So you should give us a chance to try out at least one time.
I have to say, you're selling it very well. The visual is there, at least.
Yeah, it's a entirely different level of sport, and I've been fortunate. I've been involved in football organizations and baseball and done some other things through my time. But drag racing is unique in that way where when you come out and you physically experience what it's like to watch these cars launch and take off, and then have the ability to go over and talk to the driver afterwards and look at their car up close and personal, it's unlike anything else. So yeah, if you're watching our YouTube channel or you see the updates we post on Facebook and Instagram or on rockfallsraceway.com, you should check out our 2025 schedule and give us a chance sometime.
Well, I can't wait to experience it. And I have to say thank you so much for all the information you've given us today and for coming in on the podcast to tell all of our listeners all the things that you guys are doing in the community.
Thank you and appreciate it.
I want to thank our audience for listening in today, and also Royal Credit Union as our media sponsor here at the Wind Technology Studio. For those who are looking for fun activities to do this summer, I would point out that we have Golf Day coming up on August 4th at Wild Ridge and Eau Claire Golf and Country Club. Feel free to give the chamber a shout or take a look on our website if that's something you might want to get involved in. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for episode 4 coming out in June.